What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 5. We're at Marie's here in Bushwick with the one and only Chef Miguel Trinidad. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for letting us shoot in your space. We're changing the scene up a little bit, and we want to see what we got going on here, and then chat a little bit. So, biggest question, how do you start this? How we take it back from the beginning? How do you get into fall in love with this craft? I know it's a big old question.
It's a loaded question. It's a loaded question because
take me back to the beginnings. When you knew you loved cooking? No, just how you got into this? How you got into cooking? Was that something you always loved? Were your parents a big inspiration on it?
I mean, yeah, when it comes to food, I grew up in the Lower East Side, so I was surrounded by all these different cultures and cuisines, and I was very curious as a kid. I used to walk down the street and walk into the Jewish diner down the street and ask questions about what was this and what was that, and they would hand me little samples, and go to Apollo restaurant on Delancey Street.
Oof, yes.
Come on, Chino Latino.
Yeah, I love that.
That was like the spot on the weekends. You either went to Castillo de Jagua or you went to Apollo. And I was always curious as to their family meal. They had this round table in the center of the restaurant, and the owner, this guy Vicente, un chino hablando como un dominicano.
I love that.
Right?
It blew my mind every time I walk in there sometimes.
I'm telling you, I would walk in there and see him eating, and I'm like, ¿qué es eso? And he would give me samples, and he'd taste this. And, my parents being old school is like, no, don't eat that. You don't know what it is. It can be something weird. And I was fascinated by something other than Dominican food.
Right.
Yo me cansé de los plátanos. I wanted to try something different. And my love for food led me into this, because I never thought I was going to be a chef, not when I was a kid. I remember at 8 years old just watching my mother make eggs. That was my first attempt at cooking. I'd wake up on Saturday mornings to watch cartoons, and being one of 3 at the time, whoever woke up first had control of the TV. So I wake up early so I can have control, and then I'm hungry, so I'd watch my mother make some eggs. And the following week, I came and I started doing it myself. And mommy saw it as an opportunity for her to just sleep late.
Yeah, te jodiste ahora. You didn't cook at all.
Ella se despertó and she saw me making eggs, and she's like, oh, what are you doing? All right, let me see. And she watched, and she's like, okay, you can make breakfast for your brother and sister now. Back to sleep. And that was...
your first gig.
That was my first gig. Wow, yeah. I didn't even think of it, didn't see it through that lens, but it was my first gig. And I was curious about food, so I would watch PBS, Julia Childs, Jacques Pepin, Yan Can Cook, and I would ask my mother if we could try doing different things. And she said, as long as you buy it with your money, you can do whatever you want. O con lo que hay, tú puedes hacer lo que tú quieras, pero no vamos a comprar nada que yo no conozco.
Dude, truly the first gig, you were R&Ding with your mom. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, my first restaurant job, it was in 1990.
Okay.
So I was a delivery boy at a restaurant called Benny's Burritos. Okay. They had a location in the East Village and a location in the West Village. I started working in the West Village, delivery boy.
Yeah. You worked your way to the kitchen, or that was a different spot?
You know what? From there, I worked up to management.
Okay.
Because, I've always been in a position of management, through everything that I've done. My mother had a grocery store.
Got it.
Like most Dominicans. So she had her bodega, and I would do inventory and, payroll and all of that stuff. So taking the lead in a managerial role was kind of second nature. Mami vendía números también, so I was the one who went and collected.
That is the Dominican dream right there. Una bodega en Nueva York, mandar dinero para Santo Domingo, y una vez al año de vacaciones.
That was it.
Bro. That's it.
So yeah, I started off as a delivery boy and worked my way up into, working the counter and then managing the takeout store. And from there went into bartending.
Okay.
From there I didn't get into the kitchen probably until I want to say 2000.
Okay.
When it was actually after 9/11, I opened up a small catering company because I was working in catering.
Got it.
And just running catering companies. And I saw that the potential of making money on my own. So I started my own little thing. And then 9/11 hit, and that shit died,
Yeah.
right?
Ooh.
And I started working for other caterers, and one day there was a chef that just didn't show up. Well, he was there, and he walked out as soon as the party started.
Wow.
So I had to jump in the kitchen, and I'm like, all right, I can do this.
Rise to the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point, I was even more curious about the kitchen. So I decided to go into culinary school.
Hell yeah.
And I went to the Institute of Culinary Education, ICE, and
Not that ice.
not that ICE,
Yeah. No.
but you know, the good ICE.
Good ice.
And you know, the rest is history.
Okay. Hell yeah. I mean, that's a calling. That's brought you back into being in the kitchen, man.
Mhm.
So we made it here to Marie's 2025. Before that, I heard you had some other endeavors as well too. Pre-pandemic, they quite didn't make it. You want to share a little bit on those and what cuisine was in there? And
Well, I opened up 2 Filipino restaurants,
Okay.
you know, with a former business partner. And, you know, a lot of people say, why Filipino?
right.
For me, it was a challenge. It was something that I didn't know, right? And my business partner at the time was trying to find a Filipino chef that would believe in her vision, and that didn't work. Nobody believed that it would ever go mainstream. So I saw an opportunity, and I jumped on it. I said, hey, give me a shot.
Right.
And this is where challenges come into play, because, you know, the first thing that was said to me is like, you're not Filipino. I'm like, well, there's a lot of chefs that cook outside of their own genre,
Right.
you know, outside of their own culture. So let me learn about this and let's give it a shot. What other choice do you have? So I went to the Philippines and I backpacked for 3.5 months to learn as
Research.
much as I could about the
Yeah.
cuisine. I mean, I was cooking with whoever would teach me,
Yeah.
from the most northern point of the Philippines to the most southern point. And I was amazed at how much Spanish influence was in the food. You know, I was completely unaware. There's things that el arroz caldo for them is asopao for us.
Yeah.
And the difference is we put tomato in ours. You know, they put ginger, but it's the same thing.
I had a pernil. They cooked their pork very similar, and it was like,
El lechón,
Yeah,
ese
lechón,
ellos lo
yeah.
preparan igualito como un dominicano o un puertorriqueño.
yeah,
Right? The herbs are different. You know, there's lemongrass in theirs, where we have ours is heavy in oregano,
yeah,
but it's the same process. And I saw all of this Spanish influence in the food. For example, un plato que le dicen afritata is el pollo guisado para nosotros.
pollo guisado.
And I'm like, yeah, I know how to make this.
Yeah,
So it came naturally. Came back to New York and, you know, opened up, and there was a lot of success that came from these 2 places, you know. Tons of accolades. I got nominated for 2 stars in the New York Times.
wow,
James Beard nominee for Best Cookbook. 4 stars Time Out New York. I mean, accolades. I won Best Burger and Best Seafood Dish and Best Chicken Dish, and the hits just kept coming, and the restaurants were extremely popular for, you know, almost a decade.
wow. I mean, to be open for more than a couple of years in the restaurant industry or bar industry is like tremendous. So hats off to you and being able to do, you know, all that. Sounds like an amazing process, right?
Thank you.
And now we're here in this lovely establishment. You're doing your thing, but you're also known as a disruptor in the cannabis business. So let's dive into that. Mama, look away. Everybody look away.
Mama, let me teach you something about this, all right? It's medicine.
It's medicina. It's legalized.
You know?
Most places, yeah.
Yeah. You know, cannabis is something that has always been a friend.
Yeah.
You know, as a kid, I didn't know what I was doing, but as an adult, you know, I learned to respect the plant and the properties that all the benefits that you can derive from it. You know, as a Latino, we just like making noise, and it's like I wanted to change the conversation when it came to cannabis.
Right.
Nosotros como dominicanos, it's like you can drink every day,
Yeah.
but if you smoke weed, tú eres un tecato.
Yeah.
Right? And I always ask why? Why? Because this is harmless. I've never seen anybody who's super stoned who's getting into fights or passing out and, you know, just causing trouble.
Right.
This was always something that made people happy, and everybody around us, even, you know, los tíos, at the time I didn't know were consuming.
Right. Yeah.
It had always been a part of the life around us. With cannabis, I just wanted to destigmatize it, and I thought that the best way to do that was through food. So I founded 99 Floor, and for over a decade, been doing these underground dinner parties, high-end, fine dining, 5-course cannabis-infused meals.
Right. That sounds amazing. I gotta sit one down. I gotta try the one out.
There's one coming April 12th, man. You gotta come.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sign me up on that one. Sign me up on that one. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So like you two passions, merge them together. I studied a little bit on it, and it just seems like such a process and like so much thought put behind it. And I think the word disruptor is the right word for it, because it's like, our culture is, that's for, tú un tecato, you're doing bad things, but it's like, man, we are programmed to do so much worse things other ways. It's like, it's the educational piece, right? So I think it's ultra important, and to tie that in with food, that's amazing.
I think in order for people to understand the medicine behind it and the benefits, you have to give it to them in a vessel that they're familiar with. My mother was so against it. You're going to jail, you're messing around with this. I'm gonna have to buy you cigarettes, you're gonna have a boyfriend. I'm like, Mom,
oh my God.
Like you're really going over the edge, right? But I saw how many pills my mom was taking for all of her ailments.
Yeah.
And it was stripping her life away. It was just, she was a shell of a woman that I grew up with. She was sleeping all the time. She was in constant pain. There was massive depression. And I wanted to wean her away from that. Not only her, but the Latino community as well. So I knew she would never smoke. I knew she wasn't going to eat an edible. But I did know that, si lo echaban un sancocho, she might take it.
Right.
And not know the difference. I know that she had a sweet tooth, so I started off with, just leaving some chocolates, and she's like, no, yo no me voy a comer eso porque después si voy al hospital y me ven eso en el sistema, me van a meter presa.
Yeah.
That's the mentality that she had, right? And I'm like, no, mommy, nobody's gonna arrest you for this. And I remember, I grew up in New York, so it's like, you come over, you hit the intercom.
Right.
By the time you get up to the 5th floor, the door's open, right? And I walk into the apartment, and my mother's coming from her bedroom, and I swear to God, I saw her skip. Like, I'm like, did I just catch that? I saw her skip. And I'm like, okay, maybe it was just me. And then she sits down, me da un cafecito, estamos hablando, and she's alive and animated and happy. And I'm like, Mommy, what's up?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Did you take any medication? No, yo no me tomé medicina. You took something? No. Me comí uno de esos chocolates que tú dejaste, pero eso no me hizo nada. I was like, okay.
No me hizo nada.
No me hizo nada. But here we go, 2 weeks later, it's like the chocolates are gone.
Right.
And she goes, no, esos dulces estaban buenos, pero no me traiga más que yo no quiero más.
That's code word for tráeme más que yo quiero más.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I get it.
Right.
I get it.
And I started just leaving little edibles, sometimes I'd make some food and drop it off for her that was infused. Started making some topicals, and I saw her mood change. She was alive again. She was the mother that I grew up with.
It's amazing.
And she was happy. She was happier, because, my fuerte.
Yeah.
But, she just needed a little happy pill.
Yeah.
And I wanted to continue that journey within our community. It's like, why do we have to take all these pills for, bursitis or back pain or depression or diabetes? And it's like, it fixes one problem, but destroys another part of your body.
The story's like, it has so many side effects. And
exactly. Yeah. And it's like, we can get all of that medicine from this plant with no side effects.
Yeah.
So I started digging deeper into strains and terpene profiles to target specific ailments, and incorporated that into the dinners. If you come to one of my dinners, I compare it to drinking a bottle of wine by yourself over a 2.5 hour period. You feel warm, you feel nice, you sleep well.
Yeah.
It's the same effect, but now you're doing this through food, and you're exploring different types of cuisines, and you're exploring different cultures. And food has always brought people together. Everybody has to eat.
Yeah. There's nothing like sharing a meal with somebody. It's like so intimate and like in the best way possible.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's amazing that you're spearheading this in this way, and like the light you're taking towards it, right? Because I think, after COVID happened, there's some buzzwords that kind of trigger everybody a little bit. But I think people are paying a little bit more attention to what they're consuming, what they're doing, health-wise. And like you told me the story about your mother, and I could think about like 20 to 30 people right now that would have huge beneficial, just by just switching or trying it out, giving it a shot.
Yeah.
Versus doing whatever, the standard medicine practice is now, like, and it hits a little different, right? Because I think our community, this generation so open-minded, but then all older generation is very like stuck in their ways. Like, it has to be like this. You dress a certain way, you're this person. If you do this, you're that person. So it's like, changing somebody's perspective on something positive is amazing. Like, I'm off the record, big on the record, big mushroom advocate too. So I'm like, I tell everybody, like, you're having a hard time in life, take some mushrooms or do therapy, do both. I encourage to do both, at least once or twice a year. Therapy, do it as much as you want. But, I think it's dive into these things and be okay with it. And like, this industry is changing so much that I think years from now, we're gonna look at it as like, I'm happy that you're spearheading a project like this, because they're gonna be restaurants doing this.
Eventually, that's the goal.
Yeah, for sure, it's gonna be on it, right? And then they're gonna monetize it, and they're gonna do it, capitalize on it. But I think it got built on so much shaky foundations and so much, turbulence, that I'm happy that we're making out of it. And like, I want to see Marie's infused kitchen, or whatever you decide to call it in the future, right? Like, because it's gonna happen. Like, we see it, we know it's gonna happen. So
I mean, listen, the OCM wants it to happen, and there's interdepartment red tape, with the Department of Health, OCM, and how they're gonna police it and really control it. It's a scary space for them, especially people that don't understand what it is, because they don't understand what it is, and they don't know how to use it. Right, but there's people like me and people out there. There's tons of cannabis chefs that are out there. Let me strike that. I hate the term cannabis chef, because we're chefs. We're just using cannabis as an ingredient. There's tons of chefs out there that are using it responsibly and really know what they're doing. And it's a lot of care and thought that goes into it. You just don't finish something with a cannabis oil and send it out without knowing what the potency is, or what the effects are going to be, or what the terpene profile is, or if the strain is an indica or sativa. There's so many factors that can ruin somebody's experience.
So let me tell you something. An edible, I am terrified of edibles. Like, I had an experience, and I'm sure everybody has an experience of an edible that hit the wrong way. So I'm like happy that you guys are being conscious about it, of like, hey, all of it, right? Like, how's this gonna make you feel? How much of it, right? So, and I'm sure you have your metrics to figure that out.
Yeah, the metrics, always, I microdose throughout the meal. So it's a very small dose for each course. So like that, if you're gonna eat an edible that's 10 milligrams or 25 milligrams, that's gonna hit you all at once. When you're eating something that's microdosed, it's going to hit you periodically. It's like a time release, right? And you'll feel a little bit here, you feel a little bit there. You also have other elements that are gonna slow down the absorption process and the onset. So understanding those things and understanding how the body digests the food and what your endocannabinoid system can handle is extremely important when you're creating these meals and these experiences for people. Because I want people to come, but I want people to leave comfortably.
Right, not in a different dimension, parallel universe.
I don't want anybody stuck. I know when I started experimenting with this, I was stuck.
I
remember my first candy that I made, I thought, it was our signature candy. And what I thought was 17 milligrams was actually like 170, because my math was wrong.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on for that ride.
Imagine. You're still getting back from it.
I got back a long time ago, but it took me a while.
I can imagine. So, to move a little bit forward onto this, right? I think you have so many triumphs and so many like key moments in your life. Now you're Open Up Marie, you just celebrated a year, so congratulations to you guys.
Thank you.
Amazing spot, amazing place. what are some of the obstacles? And I think this is very important to highlight, not only your success, but like what are something that you had to overcome or you had to work towards that you can inspire somebody who's want to be in your position or close to it, or you know, just have an idea what goes on in this world.
You know,
Where do you start?
where do you
Where's the
start
laundry
with it?
list?
'Cause, I mean, listen, the restaurant business is not for the faint-hearted. It's not for the lighthearted. It is tough. You'll be kicked. You'll be stomped upon, and there's always something wrong. But the benefits of owning your own and being your own boss and being as creative as you want to be and putting smiles on people's faces outweighs all of that.
Yeah.
It definitely does. I mean, I couldn't see myself doing anything else. As much as the long hours,
Yeah.
the sleepless nights,
Yeah.
that phone ringing when you're like, oh, please
Be
let
good
it not be the
news.
restaurant.
Yeah.
Yep. It all just it means nothing, you know.
The scales always seems even somehow,
Yeah.
right? No matter how heavy one side gets. Like,
Listen, you put out a plate and you see somebody sitting at that table and they're like, yes, right, my job is done.
oh yeah.
You know, this for me was a passion project.
Yeah.
When I first got out of culinary school, I always felt like I was going to cook Italian food. That was my first thought, because of the diversity and the creativity behind it, and just I had a love for that type of cuisine. And here we are 14 years later,
Wow.
you know, and here it is, I'm bringing this to fruition.
Oh yeah. Amen. I love that.
Uh,
Yeah. It just doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like, you know, it is work, but it doesn't feel like it. It's like, I think the scales are always going to be even if you're doing it from the heart.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's immense work. That's great. I can't wait to get back in here and try some of the cuisine myself and try it out. So, besides what are some of your favorite spots that you go out to that you know, listen, you're taking the night off from cooking, you're gonna grab the wife, you're gonna go on to dinner. Where are you going to? What are we grabbing? What are we eating?
You know, there's some spots that will always hit you right here.
Yeah.
You know, for me, Woe Hop in the City.
Okay.
It's just a staple when it comes to food. You know, it was always a late night spot. It's where you ran into chefs and people in the industry. I like Woe Hop. There's this one spot in Ditmas Park, right, called Elias's Corner.
Okay. I think I heard of that.
Dude, just go.
Yeah.
You have to go because they don't have menus. They just tell you what the catch of the day is, whatever fish they have.
I love that
You
already.
walk in, you
Yeah.
see what they got in the window, in the display case, and they prepare it very simply: olive oil, oregano, salt and pepper, grilled,
I love
steamed.
that.
And till this day, probably one of the best meals that I've ever had. Because I ordered a Chilean sea bass, and with my first bite, I just put down my fork because I didn't want the meal to end.
Damn.
Right?
Damn. That's setting the bar up, man. I love
And
it.
it's just simple, good food, good quality ingredients, fresh food. Here in the neighborhood, you know, 8 Pagodas,
Okay. Yeah.
go there for the wings.
I heard.
Dude, they got the gochujang wings. 'Cause I love spice.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just like you. It's like, you know, I will hurt myself because I like spice so much.
Listen, we gotta live. We
Yeah.
gotta live. Anthony Bourdain said, "Our body's a roller coaster. You know, you gotta enjoy the ride."
Exactly.
to you know, responsibly, guys.
Responsibly, of course. Of course. A new spot that just opened up down the street, a nice bar, Rah Rah Rhino.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You know, Mike is a real good guy. Go check him out. He has that and Merbs,
Yeah.
neighborhood spots to hit up.
We got none. Listen, our neighborhood, Ridgewood, Bushwick, this little area, this little triangle situation, so, you know, has nothing to envy anything in the city or anything anywhere else. Like, there's so many things popping up and like so much good food. And I think you hit it on the nose when you just, you know, what sparked your curiosity of like the culinary cultures is being able to go to this place and get this type of food, or like, hey, I want this type of food, or Dominican Chinese food, which is, it's such a beautiful combination because I love both. So that's amazing.
There's something about New York City and all the cultures, and it's a question that I've always asked people that have grown up here from different cultures, is what's Thanksgiving like at your house?
Yeah.
You know,
Who's cooking what?
who's cooking what? Because you guys are making a turkey, but what are the side dishes?
Yeah. The turkey's by tradition or whatever, but what's the real dish? Yeah.
And like people that I've met throughout the years, I've heard of jerk turkey, curry turkeys, rotis, and different sides.
Pantalón de yuca, my mom is like,
Mira pa' allá.
yeah.
I haven't had one of those
yeah.
in a long time.
Yeah, she must, bro. It's not, and my sister throws down too, like, de todo. It's just, it's the turkey's a lot. We're like, we do it because we have to. It's like, everybody pavo. But I get, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything you want to plug into? Anything you want to put on? I know you said you have, but that's invites only for the 99 Club, right?
Well, what is formerly the 99th floor,
Yeah.
because we are rebranding.
Right.
I'm grateful for the time I had with the company, but I decided to move on and rebrand. So yeah, people can hit me up at Chef Miguel NYC on Instagram, and I'll put you on the mailing list for that. But we hold these dinners once a month in different locations around the city and country. So yeah, come by and see what cannabis and fine dining cuisine is all about.
One in a lifetime experience. It's like, I love this, so unique.
Yeah.
So good luck with all your new endeavors with that, with the new project. Good luck here, much fortune to you and Maurice. And do you want to touch on the Easter eggs
Okay,
before we move on?
Yeah. I would love to, because here, Marie's, we wanted to do something fun, right?
Yeah.
An Easter egg hunt
Okay.
for Easter. So we are placing Easter eggs at different locations, some of our favorite spots, some of our favorite people. We'll be placing these Easter eggs around the city and posting them on Instagram. And if you find it and open up this Easter egg, you'll get a little reward. It could be a dinner for two, it could be a bottle of wine, it could be, a cocktail.
Yeah.
But a nice little find, something that's interactive and cause people to engage. The reason I'm doing this is because I love to build community, right? And there's a lot of businesses in the area. And for the past year, the restaurant industry has suffered tremendously.
Yeah.
According to the National Restaurant Association, there's been a significant decrease in sales over the past year. So this is a way to cross-promote places. It's like, go down to Merv's and you might find the Easter egg hidden in a little spot that you saw the video on Instagram. Go to Aftermath and you might find it under the bar stuck.
Love it.
Right?
Hey, I'm not putting it there, by the way. You guys are gonna look for it.
You guys got to find it. You got to find it. You got to do the work.
Yeah.
Go on our Instagram, check out where we're placing, and then follow up.
Yeah.
And this will get people going to different spots. It'll get people coming here, and I feel that it'll build community, and we can help lift each other. As a restaurant community here in Bushwick and Ridgewood.
I love that. I think that's such a key important thing to do, is like to be able to highlight, and the reason why we're doing this, and it's like that it just comes natural for us to support each other and show the community that we could get this done between us, and they are able to identify community building in different places. So I think from a bar, restaurant, or whatever it is, I think we got to continue to show that, lead the role, lead by example, and continue to do these things. I think hats off to you when it comes down to that, because that's a genius idea. I love it. And, go find the Easter egg at Aftermath soon.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But thank you for taking time out of your busy day and, doing this stuff with us. And yeah, man, hopefully we got to do some type of pop-up, Aftermath, Maurice, you do the food and we do the drinks, or whatever.
I'm definitely game for it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out, and then we'll let you know soon enough. So
all right. So you had mentioned, you said what challenges I came across in building this, and I think one of the major challenges was finding funding. It's hard to find the right people to pair up with, and you shouldn't just team up with someone because they got cash.
Yeah.
So you got to find the right person, somebody who's going to work just as hard as you to, make that vision a reality.
Right.
And if I had to give advice to my younger self, it's like, tread carefully. You know,
Right.
really learn who you're getting in bed with.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yeah, it's a partnership, it's a marriage. So it's like it's like anything else. You got to be give and take, and you know, it's just it gets tricky. It's
Yeah.
tricky for sure.
yeah. You know, my younger self was hungry, and I'm like, all right, first one who came in, let's go,
Yeah.
let's do this. And you know, I paid the price for it.
Yeah.
But you know, I came out on top in the end.
Yeah, it's
So-
a learning opportunity, I call it. Like, you know, there's many lessons to be learned, and you know, we chatted briefly on this, but it's like, it made you look where you're at now, kind of thing. It made you the man you are, and you know, definitely relatable to some degree, and I think for everything, you could apply that to everything in life a little bit, yeah?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
man.
course. You know, and listen to your wife.
Listen to your wife, yeah.
right?
You want to
They
sleep,
know
you don't want to
this
sleep on the couch, listen to your wife.
Listen to your wife. Take your ego out and listen to your wife.
Yeah. I think the ego part is the biggest one to me. Is like, I think overall, right? I might be the mushrooms trip from years ago still talking to me a little bit, but I think the ego part is so crazy because there's you know, there's so many emotions involved, and there's so many things, so many moving parts in a business, right? Or like even a relationship where the ego gets involved. It just meddles, and it just hijacks everything, and it just turns it into something that it's not supposed to be, right?
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
without a doubt. I will tell you this, that swallowing pride never killed anybody,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
So it's like checking your ego, as hard as it may be, it's
Yeah.
something that we have to learn, you know, to, we have to learn to do, which I'm still doing. I'm
Yeah.
still
Yeah,
learning.
Listen, I'm with you there, and I think having kids now is like the part where it's like, oh, humble yourself down, bro. Like, you know, life is not that crazy. Like this, it could be also simple, and sometimes it's like understanding each other and like, all right, let me see what he really thinks. Let me put myself in that perspective, and see where we're, you know, what part of the car we're on. Do you feel the bumps like I feel the bumps? Do you feel the smooth sailing? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, to me, it was like a very grounding experience. It's like, you know, still learning, still taking it day by day, but just keeping your own ego in check starts there, and then like, because then you're able to identify, oh, you're not talking from yourself. You're talking your ego. Something's happening with your ego right now.
Yeah.
Like you're feeling your ego needs to you need to feed it or something. But come on, let's figure it out. And I think that's ultra important to be self-aware, like where you're standing, like where you're at. So,
Yeah. You have to be humble.
Yeah.
You have to be humble in order
Yeah.
to grow.
Yeah. Growth is painful, uncomfortable, challenging, like running a business. And I think if you don't do it, if you don't go through those processes, you're not gonna, you know, how many people we know, you know, even back at home, you guys watching this, is how many people we know that could use an ego check, or like, hey, dude, you or a person or whatever, you could just do so much more in life if you just
Cógelo con take it easy.
cógelo con take it easy, loco. You know, it's not that complicated, man. It's not that bad. You know, we could all it could all be so simple sometimes, but yeah, that's amazing advice, man. So like, younger self, or you know, whoever's out there, like, you know, building a project or having something new to come up with, it definitely presents some challenges, right? And if you're hungry enough, you'll jump into whatever opportunity because you're like, man, I got to make this happen.
Right.
And then you're like kicking yourself in the leg, or kicking yourself in the ass after this, because you're like, man, where we're at now, you know? And it tends to happen to some degrees and others, but I think learning from it's the biggest part. Yeah, the biggest part. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And to finish off on that, man, I would tell my younger self also, like, I grew up in New York City, and you know, I grew up in the Lower East Side.
Yeah.
So for the Heights, yo era demasiado fino,
Yeah.
you know. So I wasn't Dominican enough
Right.
to hang out on the
Yeah.
Heights, but then, you know, being in the Lower East Side, I wasn't white enough to fit in. So it's like I was in this kind of limbo. And one thing that I learned as I got older is to really bring my people in closer, because together we were able to accomplish so much more than apart. So to
That
the
part,
younger
yeah.
generation, man, it's like, hold on to your Latinos and give back whenever you can.
That part is, bro, that is the part. That's the if you take away anything from this interview, I think that's the biggest one. I think we it's been a common trend on, like, when I'm talking to you, the individuals that we're doing this with, is that there should be no gatekeeping, there should be unity. I think that's a beautiful message that you're gonna leave everybody with. It's just like, hey, you know, together we're stronger, uplifting each other. I love watching my friends win. I love watching my friends tell me about, hey, we're doing this, we're doing that. It's like, because that's the circle. That's the people that we're choosing to keep around. That's the people that we're winning, and that's the, you know, that's beautiful to see, even if I don't know them personally. I love watching a chef who's Latina or Latino like get awards or get written up about, because man, I know how it goes, right? Like I've been there, right? So it's like, I get it, and like to me that's huge, you know. And shout out to everybody just trying to get it done, trying to live out their dreams. But like together, man, you get so much unity, and it sometimes just takes an extension of your hand. It's just, hey, if you need anything, let me know. Like, you know, I got put onto the group association with the restaurants, right, for the chat, and like I got so much help from that. It's just like I have so many questions. I'm like, hey, how do I do this?
Right.
Somebody reaches out instantly because they know where that question comes from.
Right.
Yeah. So that's amazing. Yeah. La cultura.
La cultura. I got emotional when I saw Zoe win the Oscar.
Yeah.
I'm like, coño de lo mío. Look at that.
Yeah. We have a picture of Jack Veneno on the bar, and people were like, yo, who's that? And I'm like, man, let me tell you this story right now, man. And we go in, right, and like we start explaining to them what Jack Veneno is. We name drinks after him and all that stuff. Like we had the series of naming a cocktail Jack Veneno and different versions of it, right? But it's like ultra proud of it, right? Like, you know, not that Jack Veneno is the only thing we got to be proud of, but there's a million things, and like embracing your culture into it and tapping it into. Like, I'm sure you do that with your cooking too. It's like, you know, you always put that sazon in there, man. Like, you know, you always put that touch in there, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's ultra important because, you know, representation goes all across the board. You said Filipino food earlier. I was like, for sure. Like, I can see it happening, you know?
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful thing, man. We have such a beautiful culture to like embrace. So, yeah. So thank you, man, for doing this, jumping on, and I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. Of course.
Thank you, man. I'll see you guys in the next one.